Hello and welcome to Midday Report. My name is Anna Kalczyńska and here are the latest. Poland celebrates its Independence Day. President Karol Nawrocki and Minister of Defense Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz both took part in ceremony in Warsaw's Piłsudski Square, where they laid wreaths at memorials to historical architects of Polish independence, such as Józef Piłsudski, Wincenty Witos and Ignacy Jan Paderewski. From the Piłsudski Square, Diana Skaya reports.
Soldiers in parade uniforms, marching bands, flag-raising ceremonies, and here at the Piłsudski Square in Warsaw, the cold isn't stopping families and Poles across the country, and here in Warsaw, in the city, to come and celebrate Polish Independence Day, including the smallest Polish patriot. And I have here Jakub, who is, ile ty masz lat?
8.
So he's 8 years old. He's holding a Polish flag, and he's here with his parents and with his grandparents. Jakub, co ci się podoba dzisiaj? Czemu jesteś tutaj?
Dlatego, bo to tak, że to mój pierwszy raz jest. Zawsze oglądałam te wszystkie uroczystości w telewizji. Dzisiaj przyjechałam z tatą i z dziadkami tu pierwszy raz, aby zobaczyć, jak tutaj w ogóle jest, jak to wszystko wygląda.
A ty jesteś z Warszawy?
Nie, jestem z Maszowa Mazowieckiego.
Wow, so Kuba here isn't from Warsaw, and he just told me that he came from another town, and he's seen all these celebrations earlier on television, on live television, and he wanted to come and experience it live for the first time here in Warsaw. He's been here, he's dressed, and he's ready to celebrate. Bardzo dziękuję, Kuba. Meanwhile, marking the occasion, a large ceremony took place in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier on Piłsudski Square in Warsaw. The official changing of the guard ceremony, with President Karol Nawrocki and top officials in attendance, laying wreaths for all key figures in the country's struggle for independence. Military gendarmerie vehicle tanks on display, a state mass, national anthem sung, and different celebrations at locations taking place particularly at Krakowskie Przedmieście in Old Town Warsaw. Full-day programs including historical reenactments and creative workshops, as I mentioned, with all the families gathering to celebrate the day. But on the sidelines, one of the key events that are going to mark the day is the Independence March, which is more of a manifestation of patriotism, yet being hijacked by the Eurosceptic far-right groups, which in previous years have drawn anti-immigration sentiment and occasional outbreaks of violence. So even though division and polarization are deeply rooted here in Poland, one thing is for sure, that today here, Poles are united together, celebrating the independence that they gained on November 11th, 1918. For TVP World in Warsaw, I'm Diana Skaya.
And in this show of unity, the annual Independence March is set to begin in Warsaw, with tens of thousands expected to participate. This year's iteration, with the slogan "One Nation, Strong Poland," will begin at 2 p.m. with a singing of Polish national anthem, followed by a procession from the Roman Dmowski roundabout in central Warsaw to the National Stadium across the Vistula River. Figures from Poland's opposition Conservative Law and Justice Party and the far-right Confederation Party have said they intend to participate as well. President Karol Nawrocki, a law and justice ally, encouraged people to take part in the march, calling the event an opportunity for Poles to show unity and love for their homeland. The rally in the capital has been the subject of controversy in the past, attracting far-right demonstrators and blighted by violence in previous years. But apart from delving into politics, the Independence Day is an opportunity to honor the legacy of the architects of the reborn Polish state. On November 11th, Poles celebrate 107 years since the re-establishment of Poland as a sovereign nation after the collapse of the Russian, German and Austro-Hungarian empires. Poland re-emerged as an independent state after spending 123 years under the rule of its neighboring powers.
On November 11, 1918, the Entente and Germany signed an armistice agreement that reverberated across the globe. The armistice ended hostilities on the Western Front, although fighting continued in some areas. As part of its terms, all German forces had to stand down in Poland and other occupied areas. General Józef Piłsudski, freed from a German prison just days earlier, was given command of the Polish armed forces and tasked with creating the new Polish government.
He was one of these tireless activists working for Polish independence throughout his life. And you could say this was the culmination of his efforts. So in the east, Poles were disarming German troops and Austro-Hungarian troops. They were all going home. A vacuum formed, and Piłsudski was the guy who signed off on this project. There were other people there, the Regency Council, Ignacy Wincenty Witos, Roman Dmowski, but Piłsudski is the guy around which everything seemed to crystallize.
After 123 years, Poland regained its freedom and was now faced with the task of rebuilding the state.
There's a difference between the nation and the state. The Poles as a nation always existed, but you have to have a state. You have to have borders, an administration, a functioning army, a civil service, all that stuff. And the difficulty for the Poles was to cobble together these institutions, state institutions, from three different traditions: a Russian tradition, a German tradition, and an Austrian tradition.
Although symbolic, November 11th continues to be celebrated in Poland as the day the country regained independence. The date is also celebrated by former members of the Entente as Armistice Day. While the number remains subject to debate, it is estimated that between 15 and 22 million people died during World War I, with the civilian death toll reaching between 6 and 13 million.
Amid growing concerns over European security and shifting global alliances, the European Union is taking steps to strengthen its intelligence coordination. The European Commission, led by Ursula von der Leyen, is advancing plans for a centralized intelligence unit to enhance European security. Our correspondent Angela Skujins is in Brussels and has more.
Amid increasing incidents of hybrid warfare, the European Commission is reportedly stepping up its own intelligence gathering services. According to the Financial Times newspaper, as well as Euractiv, individuals that spoke to these media outlets state that the European Commission, that's the EU executive branch, is looking at establishing its own intelligence cell under the office of the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. Now, von der Leyen's second mandate as the President of the European Union has seen an increasing amount of these new hybrid warfare incidents. We're talking about drone incursions entering Polish airspace, as well as fighter jets into Estonia, as well as the ramp up of suspected Russian propaganda in EU aspirant countries, such as Moldova, to better consolidate all of the information across the European Union. These media outlets are reporting that von der Leyen wants to set up her own office that sits under her to share and consolidate all of this information. At the beginning of the year, when she took over as the president once again, she also established the defence portfolio, currently headed up by the former Lithuanian Prime Minister, Andrius Kubilius. The aim is to ensure that Europe is ready against these hostile threats. The details are scarce so far, but we're expecting some EU member states to raise their eyebrows at the proposition, at sharing intelligence among the 27 EU member states. We know that 1 month ago, bombshell allegations dropped, suspecting Hungary operating its own spy ring out of the embassy here in the Belgian capital. What we know so far is the EU needs to meet these unprecedented challenges, but is this office the best way to do so? Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
Just as temperatures drop and Ukraine grapples with energy shortages due to massive Russian drone and missile strikes, the country faces a fraud scandal. An operation codenamed Midas revealed a large-scale corruption scheme in the energy sector. More than 70 raids were conducted, and investigators say they have proof of officials close to President Volodymyr Zelensky being involved.
Emergency services in Odessa battled with the blaze in the early hours of Tuesday after yet another Russian strike targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Just hours earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for decisive action against corruption amid an ongoing probe into the country's energy sector.
Energoatom provides Ukraine with the largest share of energy generation now. Transparency in the company is a priority. In the energy sector and every other industry, the people who devise these schemes must be tried through a clear administrative process. Sentences must be handed down.
The 15-month-long probe carried out by Ukraine's Western-backed National Anti-Corruption Bureau revealed major irregularities regarding the country's nuclear giant.
Among the currently identified members of the criminal organization are a former advisor to the Ministry of Energy, the executive director for physical protection and security of nuclear power operator Energoatom, a well-known businessman, and 4 individuals working in back offices.
Central to the investigation, according to Ukrainian media reports, is Zelensky's former business partner and friend Timur Mindic, who reportedly fled the country just before the Bureau conducted searches of his properties.
Pretty much everyone understands that we are more or less at the first stages of something big. How big will it be? As of now, I think no one knows, but everyone wonders.
In July, Kyiv had attempted to strip Nabu of its independence, but later reversed the move amidst mass protests and pressure from the EU to enhance transparency and governance. Ukraine's energy minister hopes the probe will showcase the country's progress toward accountability.
I hope that the openness of the investigation will not affect, but will only reassure our international partners that we are open to any actions that are taking place.
The scandal comes as Ukraine's energy sector grapples with massive blackouts. Keeping the lights on and houses warm throughout the winter is seen as vital to sustaining the country's war effort.
On this day, 3 years ago, Ukrainian troops pushed the Russian army out of Kherson. Today, it's a ghost town. Once bustling with life, the city has become mired in a wartime stillness where daily life takes place either behind walls or underground.
Residents of the city filled the main square waving blue and yellow flags and hugging the soldiers who had freed them from Russian occupation. At the time, they believed the worst was over, but was simply the start of another chapter of their wartime lives. Russian troops still strike the town with regular intensity, and drones fill the skies above the city scarred by war.
I go home in the evening and there are drones flying in the sky. I just run away like I used to. Before, I would hide under trees. Now I don't know where we're supposed to hide.
Despite that, residents who live in the shadow of constant Russian strikes still prefer daily shellings to Russian occupation.
We all said and still say that it's still better now than it was during the occupation when the Russians were here.
A recent visit by Hollywood star Angelina Jolie gave a morale boost to residents trying to go about their lives amid Russian drone attacks. Attacks, which according to a UN inquiry, constitute crimes against humanity.
Our findings relate to 3 oblasts in Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk, Kherson and Mykolaiv, and we have found in this recent report that these attacks against civilian and civilians' objects amount to crimes against humanity.
Russia's drone attacks on civilians near the front line have created an atmosphere of terror, compelling thousands to flee their homes. Once filled with 280,000 people, Kherson has become a ghost town where explosions rock the city with each day. Nothing is off the table for Russian drones and missiles, even this children's hospital.
And that's all in this report. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned to TVP World for more.